In this morning's gospel, the Holy Spirit will teach you everything and remind you of all that I have said to you. So, happy Feast of Pentecost, my brothers and sisters. It is a grace to be with you on this day that we celebrate the event for which this wonderful church family is named. This is said to be the anniversary of the birth of the church, the day that we remember the gift of the Spirit as she came down from heaven and lighted on the disciples and forever changed the course of human history. Happy birthday, church. The Spirit is sometimes said to be the most mysterious member of the Godhead, if for no other reason, I suppose, than the fact of the manifold ways that the Spirit works in our individual human lives and all across the world. We know that God the Father is the Creator, who brought and brings all things into being. We know that God the Son is the Christ, who in the person of Jesus becomes God incarnate and who comes to hallow human experience and set us free from sin and death. But it's harder to shorthand the work of the Spirit. The Spirit is the healing person of God who restores us when we are sick or hurting or broken in some profound way. The Spirit is the inspirational person of God who lifts us up when we are weary and who speaks through the prophets across the ages. The Spirit is a frankly miraculous and powerful presence when she appears on the scene in the lives of faithful people. And the means of those appearances are many, as the Spirit is manifest as a dove, as tongues of fire, as a powerful wind, and many, many others. She may be hard to fully explain, but one thing is certain sure: when the Holy Spirit is manifest in our lives, she is a powerful and divine force for change and for good. In this morning's gospel story, Jesus is speaking to his disciples not long before his crucifixion and his death. In this moment, he is preparing his friends as best he can for the challenges that they will soon face together. He teaches them about the power of love. He warns them about the fate that lies just before them all. He encourages them to remember all that has been said and done and never ever to lose hope. And then he makes a promise. Right at the end of the little snippet that Deacon Joan read this morning, he promises that he will send a helper who will be companion and guide to the disciples even though he must leave them. Jesus says, "I will ask the Father, and he will give you another advocate. An advocate to be with you forever. This is the Spirit of truth, who the world cannot receive because it neither knows him nor sees him, but you know because he abides in you and he will be in you. The advocate, the Holy Spirit, will teach you everything and will remind you of all that I have said to you." Jesus promises to send a teacher to help us remember all that he has said and done, to help us understand the meaning and the power of his words and his works, to inspire and encourage us when the trials of our lives as disciples become challenging or painful. Jesus promises to send a teacher who is just as mysterious and powerful as any other manifestation of the Holy Spirit. So I got stuck in the airport for 9 hours this past week. Partly that was my fault. I showed up to a flight 4 hours early in order to get an easy, free ride to a faraway airport. But the last 5 hours were all on the weather and the airlines and my terrible luck every single time I fly. In order to pass the time in Newark, I sat down for dinner at an airport bar where just after taking my seat, I was joined by a companionable guy whose name I soon discovered is John. John and I got to talking, and I learned that he is a very successful businessman who travels all over internationally and who is a practicing Roman Catholic. He got pretty excited when he found out that I am a bishop. I was traveling incognito. And as sometimes happens when a person actually likes being in the company of a clergy person, he began to share with me some of the deeper tales of his life. And in particular, he told me the story of his education, which happened in this way. He grew up in Northampton, Mass, in a family of very modest means. He went to his local parochial school when he was young. I was a bit of a troublemaker, John said. I was a very bright kid, but I didn't get along with my teachers well, and they didn't take much interest in me. And my family didn't care about school, so they weren't really any help. As a last resort, to keep me out of trouble, he said, my parents put me in public school when I started junior high. It was a bigger school and probably would have been even worse for me, except for my 7th grade English teacher, a Jewish lady named Ruth Cohen. Ruth saw something in me, and she just took me under her wing. The problem is that you Catholic boys don't know the Bible, she said to me. And so as an extra credit thing, she started teaching me the Old Testament. And later in the year, we read the New Testament. And then later still, the great philosophers and thinkers of the West. She said to me, you are smart enough to go to an excellent college. You should go to Amherst down the road. That's the place for you. Well, he said, my family was too poor to send me to Amherst. But Mrs. Cohen's encouragement helped me to believe in myself. And so, when I was a senior, I got into a more affordable state school, and later on I earned a scholarship to Villanova to do my graduate work. Now, I thought that was a pretty great story already, but John wasn't done yet. You know, I am a lucky man, he said. I never told Mrs. Cohen what a difference she made in my life, and I always regretted that. And then you know what? 20 years later, when I had kids of my own, I was at a playground with my children, and there was Mrs. Cohen. And I felt so blessed, and I went up to her and I said, Mrs. Cohen, I don't know if you remember me, but I am John. And when I was in 7th grade, you believed in me, and you pushed me, and you taught me the most important things, and you changed my life. You all probably won't be surprised to hear that John's eyes were full of tears when he told that last part of his story. John's is not a particularly uncommon tale. I'll bet most of us here this morning have had at least one teacher or coach or scout leader or drill sergeant who saw something more in us than maybe we even saw in ourselves, and so pushed us and shaped us to be better human beings, to become much truer versions of the creation that God made us to be. I don't know for sure if the Holy Spirit was at work when a committed Jewish teacher grabbed a wayward Catholic boy by the scruff of the neck and taught him philosophy in the Bible. But I do know that a great teacher can change human life as completely and profoundly as any holy encounter ever did. And beloved, that is the kind of teacher that the Holy Spirit is for us. Jesus promises to send in the Holy Spirit the person of a teacher to help us remember all that he has said and done, to help us understand the meaning and power of his words and his works, to inspire and encourage us when the trials of our lives as disciples become challenging or painful. All the most important things. Remember, beloved, that Jesus always keeps his promises. And so you can expect for certain sure that if you are open-minded and open-hearted to the possibility, the Spirit will surely break into your life. and bless you with a deeper understanding of the person of Jesus and a full measure of the comfort and the hope that can be ours when we take his gospel to heart. Our part is to dwell in the Holy Scriptures and learn the stories of our sacred faith. Our part is to be curious, to ask questions, to be honest about what we care about and what we really believe. Our part is to pray in earnest for the gift of that same Spirit to lead us into all truth, to enable us to grow into the image and stature of Christ. She may be mysterious and so hard to fully explain, but one thing is certain. When the Holy Spirit is manifest in our lives, she will teach us everything we need to know. She will be a powerful force